top time, bottom time, corner time, subtracting time, adding time, invisible time, secret time. Sup dogs, TheOdie here, and it is time. Let's do this. So here we are on the Timers 101 map, and we got our boy Brad, and we got our other dude, Todd the tester. And we already got stuff in here, but don't worry, that was just me testing out earlier. I'll just erase that, and we'll do this together. And we'll start with adding time, subtracting time, and then moving it all around the screen. So I'll go ahead and Brad, and we're going to create a timer. Actually, we're going to create a variable, and this variable we'll just call timer variable. And we want to set the timer variable to the in-game timer, and to do that we need script calls. This is what I'm going to be typing in, and if you're curious where I got that from, there's actually a very fabulous spreadsheet. This is down in the comments, and if we just search for timer, here we go. And you can see that we can use script calls to call for timer. We could start it with X amount of frames, we could stop it. There's not one that tells you how to get the current timer, but a bit of Google search and voila, this is how you get it. Just ._frames, and they'll give you the current timer. So right now it would of course be at 0, but now I'm just going to create a quick show choices, and we're just going to add 1 minute or sub 1 minute. And in here, what we're actually going to do is take this, copy and paste, and we're going to add to itself. And we're going to add 3600 because 60 frames is 1 second. So 60 frames times 60 is 3600, which is equivalent to 1 minute. And then here, as you can imagine, we're switching it to subtract. So now we're going to start the timer. So we're going to need to do another script call. Game timer dot start game variables dot value, and mine, oopsies, is 81. Alright, and we can go ahead and test that out. Oopsies, wrong map. I forgot to put me in here. Haha. And 1 minute. Let's add another. Let's add another. Let's add a number. And let's subtract. And yes, you can get negative time, but once you hit negative, it kind of just looks weird. It kind of just stops. So, bottom line, if you get negative time, you probably don't want to show that. And of course, to make sure you don't show it, you could always just do if that variable is less than equal to 0, then of course stop the timer. And you could just even use the built-in. Boom. Alternatively, instead of looking at the variable, you can always of course just use this as well. See? And it's gone. Haha, fabulous. Next up, let's move the timer. And this one will be a little bit more difficult because we're using purely script, and we're actually going to create a small function of sorts. So sprite underscore timer dot. Alright, here we are. Just make sure that at the end of these lines you do have your semicolons, and that for every open bracket you do have a closing bracket, and that for every open parentheses you have a closing parentheses. And in case you're wondering why you don't need a semicolon here, it's because this open bracket is telling the system that, hey, The next few lines, or up until you see a closing bracket, this is a single line. So the way we read this is that we're taking the sprite timer, which is its .x and its .y, and we're tossing it to graphics.width, which is the graphics of the screen, subtracting the width of this timer. This one is saying it's going to be in the Y position of 0. So recall that the way RPG Maker works is that top left is our 0, 0. And very similarly, that works the same way with graphics. Now, what this is saying is that we're going to take the whole width of the frame, so maybe it's 1920, and we're subtracting by the width of the timer. So, do you recognize what that means? It means that we are looking at the top left corner of the timer, and we need to subtract by the width of the timer in order to show it. So I'm going to just create some time, and then bam, top right. So if we didn't have this minus this.bitmap.width, it would actually be pushed off to the right. Alright, so as you can imagine, if you do want to put it on the bottom, and of course we're going to need the subtraction again, except it will be minus height. Ta-da! Pop quiz. Where will it show up? Where will it show up? Take your guess. Take your guess. Hopefully you got that right. Alright, pop quiz, pop quiz. Where will this one be? Take your guess. Take your guess. Did you get it right? I'll go ahead and explain it. So we're going to take the height of the graphics. So if it's 1920 by 1080, then it's going to be pushed all the way to the bottom at 1080. We're going to subtract whatever the height of that timer graphic is, so now it can be seen. And we're going to divide it by 2. So it's going to go straight to the middle, which means if we want it on the bottom center, go ahead and take your guess at what it should look like. Hopefully highlighting this has given you the hint that you needed. And Shazam! Easy the peasy. Play around with it, see what you can do, and above all, have fun. But we're not done with this tutorial, because next up are invisible timers. So the neatest thing about RPG Maker, and we're just going to create a copy, paste over it. So now we're going to use this page. I'm going to delete that. So the neat thing about RPG Maker is that it takes 1 frame for it to refresh. What that means is that anything in a parallel process, regardless of how long it is or how small it is, it will take 1 frame for it to go to the next cycle of parallel process. So what that means is that if we create a variable, and you know what, we're just going to use the timer variable that we created before, and we were to add 1. So in 60 frames, aka 60 cycles of this parallel process, this will equal 60 frames, aka 1 second. In 3600, this will equal 60 seconds, aka 1 minute. Kinda cool, huh? So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to create a timer in 2 for 3 seconds, and we're going to do a cell switch so that it can immediately switch over to this page. Oopsies. And it will start doing its timer thing. And I'll even add a conditional branch in here to say, once this timer has reached 60 times 3, 180, it will yell out time. So let's see if this works. You ready? Huh! Boom. There we go in 3 seconds. Here, we'll do it again. So it's going to go for 3 seconds, but notice that it does start with number 2. And the way RPG Maker works is that it always rounds down. So 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, boom. So there you guys have it. Now you know about the secret timer, which means if we want an invisible timer, I'm gonna just delete this out, take off the self switch, and 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, boom. Yeah, pretty sweet, eh? So now I got one experiment for you, just because this was a quick video, and that is, what if we have a loop? What does this mean? Well, believe it or not, loops inside parallel process works at its own speed. What speed? I actually have no idea, but you're going to see that it hits 180 almost instantaneously. Bam. See? It's kind of crazy, eh? So I'm going to just remove this conditional branch, and we're just going to use the built-in debugger window. Alright, ready? 1 Mississippi. Believe it was variable 18, and it says it's nothing. Oh, okay, that's kind of sad. Wait, no, it wasn't. It was variable 81, because bam, here it is. 18 was the old timer variable that I used for the past tutorial. So look at that. In 1 TheOdie, Mississippi. It's already over 1 million. So with that said, if you do want to, for whatever reason, put a timer in a loop, you will need that wait for 1 single frame. But if it tells you anything, it's that loops moves at an incredible speed. And if you ever have a loop inside of an auto run, that's why it lags and crashes. Alright, here we go. 1 Mississippi. Haha, I was pretty close. 64. My TheOdie Mississippis. So there you guys have it. Hope you learned a little bit about time, but the real question here is, are you a top time or a bottom time? If you want to see more tutorials, check out my website, and if you want to see some of the games I made, whether it's commercial games or experimental projects for you guys to explore and enjoy on your own. Either way, have a fantastic time developing your game. Till the next one. Oh, and if you have any tutorial suggestions, feel free to drop it down in the comments below. Alright, later.